All right, we're rolling. Um, Good morning, everyone. My name is Andy Cook. I'm the director of Made in Baltimore. For those of you who are new to Made in Baltimore, we are a program of the Baltimore Development Corporation that's aimed at supporting and promoting makers and manufacturers here in Baltimore City and helping to grow the buy local movement in the Baltimore region. As part of the work that we do, we like to offer business development services to small businesses in our network and outside our network. Um, One such way is through workshops like these. The Tools of the Trade series has been going throughout the summer. We pivoted to go online, of course, like everybody else. And this is now the fifth installment of the series. Today, we are pleased to bring you Brandy Mebane of Mebane Design Studio, who's going to be sharing a lot of information on her topic, Intro to Brand Visuals. We want to thank Brandy for joining us. And I want to just reiterate, we're going to ask everyone to mute themselves during the presentation and drop any questions in the chat box. There will be some time set aside throughout the presentation and at the end for questions. And before we get started, I also just want to thank our sponsors for the project. This series is sponsored by M&T Bank, as well as the PNC Charitable Trusts and the Dr. Lewis and Ann B. Schneider Foundation. So thank you to our sponsors for making this possible. And without further ado, I would like to hand it over to Brandy to get the show on the road. So Brandy, let's do the screen swap.
Okay, so let's see. Let me go ahead and turn off my camera and screen. Okay, so good morning, everyone. I hope everyone can see the screen. My name is, as Andy said, Brandy Mebane, and I'm the owner and creative director of Mebane Design Studio. And so I'm originally from Baltimore. I've been designing for about 7 years now, and I graduated with a Master of Art in Publication Design from the University of Baltimore in 2013. But I created Mebane Design Studio after years of working in corporate positions where I quite often felt my gifts and talents were not utilized, and honestly, my voice wasn't heard. So in 2019, after a rebrand that I did myself, I established Mebane Design Studio with clear vision. I believe everyone deserves to be seen, and everyone has a story that deserves to be shared. And for my small business owners, their stories and their journeys to this point play a major role in their decision to start a business. So through design and creative visual solutions, Mebane Design Studio exists to give voice to traditionally underestimated people, ideas, and causes, so more of us can share ourselves with the world. So that's a bit about myself and my business. I would like everyone on the call to introduce themselves, give a brief name, and a little bit more about your branding journey or where you are in the branding process.
So Brandy, I think I might just call on folks to make this run smoothly, and so folks don't reach out.
Okay, that sounds good, Andy.
So I'm just going to look at the list I've gotten, run down the list of names. So I'll start with Jatera Jones.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jatera Jones. I just started the company, Lava Digital Solutions, and I am at the beginning of my branding process.
Okay, welcome.
Thank you, Jatera. Next on the list, I see Jordan.
Oh, sorry.
Oh, there we go.
Aaron, go ahead. Hop on. I was like, oh gosh, she's really not speaking. I'll speak for her. No, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. We can talk to it. Oh, where we are. This is a funny question. Where? Oh no, now I just see Aaron's face, so now I forget the question. But branding, I'm Jordan from Hunt's Honey. Branding process and our journey. Basically, we're just learning as we go. Fake it till you make it is my mantra. Jumping on a bunch of webinars and like learning online. We're really just learning as we go. It's been a lot of fun, and yeah, thanks for having us.
Oh, no problem.
I will say that Jordan doesn't give herself enough credit because I'm really proud of our branding, and it's largely been led by her design and creativity. So that's all I want to say.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Erin.
Thanks, Erin.
Guys. And if you didn't catch, Jordan and Erin are with us from Huns Honey, which is a Made in Baltimore member. Great business here in town. Next on the list, I see Shuna Smith.
Hi, yeah, I'm Shauna. I'm pretty experienced in the branding world. My line is called Lobe Dangle, but I am co-owner of a branding agency. So I'm very familiar with branding, but I'm on to really see if there's any other things that I could be thinking about from a creative perspective from my leather accessory line that I have. But I am pretty well versed in branding because I do it for corporate clients as well. But glad to be on the call.
Thank you.
Thank you for joining us, Shauna, and yeah, excited to have a little bit of extra expertise on this call. So
no problem. Thank you for having me.
Next on the list, I see someone named Buzzmead. I'm not sure who Buzzmead is, but Buzzmead, are you with us? All right, I will come back to you at the end. Below that, we have Emma Ferdinand.
Hey, hopefully you guys can hear me, but I'm pretty new to branding. I mean, I've been just kind of self-branding my business, and I got on here just to learn more and just kind of learn from you guys' experience to see things that I could implement into my brand.
Very nice.
Thank you very much for joining us, Amos. We already did Erin, and then last on the list, I see Lakeisha.
Hi, everyone. My name is Lakeisha Rockbond. I'm the owner of Kiki's Cuisine, and I'm pretty clear on how to brand. I just need to get some creative ideas on how to, I guess, take pictures and make my branding a little more vibrant and noticeable.
Okay. Very good.
Thank you.
So is that?
I think that's everybody, minus Buzzmead, but hopefully they can.
One more. I'm on the line. This is Yeshia Israel.
Oh, hi, Yeshia.
YBI. Hi, how are you? YBI African Apparel and Fashion. Definitely want to learn more about branding since COVID-19. So much has changed when people coming into your store. So again, I'm kind of like everyone else, pretty much on the line. Just want to learn how to brand to make it bigger, better. So when people see it from wherever they are, be it Baltimore or international or national, they'll think about me and come to shop. So again, I would like to just see how I can improve and enhance YBI African Apparel Boutique and Fashion.
Very nice.
That's it.
Thank you.
Okay.
Is there anyone else calling
Thank
in
you.
we don't see on the line? All right. Well,
I'll put my phone back on mute.
Okay. Let's get started then, Brandy.
Okay, perfect. All right, so I would like to go over today's agenda to give you all an idea, of course, what we'll be covering. And I've built in some time for questions throughout the presentation as well as toward the end. And we'll start with a quick overview of what branding is. Again, this is a high-level review, but I'll make sure everyone has a copy of the resources that I mentioned for reference. After I talk a bit about understanding branding, we'll review my client homework document. And this is a series of questions I send as a Google form to clients to get a better understanding of their brands and businesses, as well as a little bit more about themselves. Next, we'll talk about color theory and choosing the right colors for your business. And then after that, we'll move into gathering inspiration, creative direction, and mood boards. And then we'll follow up that with talking a bit about logo design and what you should know before creating a logo either on your own or hiring a designer. We'll also discuss a bit about typography and the importance of typography in developing your brand guidelines. And then we'll touch a bit on patterns, design elements, and brand photography. And to wrap up, we'll pull everything together. I'll show you a brand guide template, which you'll have access to in my resources PDF. And yeah, then we'll wrap with final questions. Does that sound good? All right, so let's get started. Okay, so branding can take months or even years, and brands are always evolving. So to understand branding, you have to also understand that branding is not just the visual identity, which, we'll be covering a lot of the intro to visuals today, but it's also strategy, your story, which will inform your voice, tone, narrative, and content. Branding is also marketing, engagement, emotion, relevance, relationship building, everything from how you answer emails and customer service to social media captions. It's all of those things. And I want to specifically speak to brands that we've built an emotional connections with, because emotional connection is something that's very important when it comes to branding. You'll see on this slide, I've included McDonald's and Coca-Cola, but I've also included Starbucks, or kind of highlighted Starbucks. So a bit more about my journey. I have been working freelance full time for about 2.5 years. And when I first started working freelance, I didn't have any designated space kind of set up within my apartment. So I would work out of Starbucks locations around Baltimore. And then I packed up my stuff. I traveled west for about 2 weeks. And I worked out of Starbucks locations on Venice Beach and near Santa Monica Pier. And so Starbucks holds a very special place in my heart because it's, kind of representative of me taking that leap of faith into entrepreneurship full time. I was able to use their Wi-Fi for hours, use their electricity, all for the purchase of a brownie. And I've built some amazing connections with people because similar folks were working in the space as entrepreneurs and utilizing it the same way that I was. So I built an emotional connection to that brand. A local brand some of us may be familiar with is KSM Candle Company. I had the opportunity and pleasure to work with Letta on her rebrand. Speaking to emotional connection with brands, Letta involves her clients in her brand. She's reposting their images to her social channels as a way to create content, but also share how people are using her products. She also offers candle making classes, and I've seen folks celebrating birthdays, date nights, book club meetings that are candle making workshops. Clients are building an emotional connection because they feel they're a part of the brand. And at times they're celebrating important milestones with her. And you've even recently seen her pivot during COVID to offering online candle making sessions. People are having virtual date nights, happy hours, and things like that. And so that's very important. What emotional connections are you building with your customers? Kind of keep that in mind. In the resource guide, I've included links to a few articles I think will help you all understanding what branding is and isn't, as well as some background information on branding and emotional connection. I would suggest, reading through these articles when you have a moment. So, we've kind of gone through a quick overview, very quick overview of understanding branding, and we'll jump right into my client homework. All right, so I send this form, which you all will have access to clients to get an idea of who they are, what they do, and why they do it. These answers inform my design process and truly help when I'm making decisions around visuals. The first question I ask is for the exact company name and how it should appear in the logo. Next, I have clients watch this amazing 5-minute TED Talk given by Simon Sinek titled Start with Why. And then I ask clients to provide their business why. So in the video, Simon talks a bit about, defining what, how, and why, the what, how, and why for your business. And he says, most, if not all companies know what they do. Some know how they plan to do it, but few know why they are doing it. So, think about my introduction a little earlier. I spoke with you about, why I started my business, and that's because of my professional experiences. I've built a business that helps people develop platforms to share their ideas and their voice because I felt voiceless at points in my career. In addition to the design and web building, I build in a few pro bono projects per year. It's really a passion of mine to help folks create opportunities and take their power back. So the why is going to be what keeps you going when sales may be low, or when you're working around the clock, or maybe even when you had a contract cancel. So next, I ask clients to narrow down their why into 2 to 3 words. These 2 or 3 words should inform all decisions you make around your business. For example, if I'm starting a t-shirt brand and the 2 adjectives or 2 words I determined for my brand are quality and innovation, any and all decisions I make around sourcing fabric or packaging or creating content should all go back to these 2 words. If we're talking about innovation, maybe I have a line of wearable tech t-shirts where a person can scan a QR code and that could take them to my playlist when I was creating, or pictures of inspiration. So all decisions that you make around your business should really kind of boil back down to these 2 words that you have identified. Also, who is your target audience or audiences? Are there any sub-targets? You should be able to build out a complete avatar for your customers. How old are they? What's their income? Are they specific ethnicity? What are their buying habits? Where do they shop? What social platforms are they using? Where do they search for new products? The more information you have about your target consumers, the more effective you can be regarding making decisions around target marketing. But I also need this information from a visual standpoint, so it's clear who I'm designing for. I recommend to all of my clients find a small sample of folks within your target market that can serve as a focus group. You'll want to ask for feedback regularly from this group of people. Next, I have clients read an article about color theory and take a quick quiz. So the quiz is just for kind of kicks and a way to get the wheels turning regarding color and color theory, which we'll talk about a little bit later. I also ask clients to provide me with a list of business services. It's important for me to understand exactly what you do. And I also ask clients to describe what they want customers to feel when interacting or conducting business with their brand. This speaks to, again, the emotional piece we talked about earlier, and what type of community/experience would you like to create? Next, I ask clients to send links to any brand inspiration. So that's, usually a Pinterest board or any saved images on Instagram. And then I wrap things up by asking other questions like, who are your competitors? How do you plan to test brand perception? What challenges or problems does your brand solve? And what are your clients' pain points? So that's just some of the questions. There's more, of course, in the homework document that I sent. But all of the information you compile from this homework should build out a company profile. And I've provided you with a sample company profile in the resource guide. It's Starbucks, actually, their company profile guide, which is online. And it's important to have this information handy for preparing elevator pitches, for being able to talk about your brand to clients or investors. You should be very familiar with all of this information. So, before we move into the next part of the presentation, do we have any questions? Okay, it sounds like we don't have any questions. All right, I'll go right into color. So, color is a source of information. Studies have shown people make up their minds within 90 seconds of their initial interactions with either people or products. About 62 to 90% of the assessment is based on colors alone. So, prudent use of colors can contribute not only to differentiating products from competitors, but also influencing moods and feelings positively or negatively, and also influencing our attitudes towards certain products. Given that our moods and feelings kind of fluctuate and that colors play roles in forming attitudes, it's important that we understand how valuable it is to choose the right colors for our brands. So I have clients start with a color quiz. Again, this is a fun way to get the wheels turning, and I get them thinking about what emotional responses they want their clients to have and how might they use color to achieve that. So on this slide, you'll see I've highlighted a few colors. The first is red. And so if you're using red as a primary color in your logo, red is a universal sign of excitement, passion, anger, and stimulated appetite. So you'll quite often see a lot of fast food restaurants use red. But, you know, red has also some cultural ties. In China, red is luck. So I've included a link in the resources to a Shutterstock article that talks about how colors link culturally. Then you have purple. Purple blends the passion of red with the serenity of blue, and purple can appear luxurious, cutting edge, or wise with a hint of femininity. Then there's orange. So orange is an invigorating, kind of playful color. So you might choose orange from the crowds. It stands out from the crowd, rather. And it's used less often than red, but still packs an energetic punch. And so in a slide coming up, I'll show you an infographic of, you know, kind of notable brands that we're all familiar with and where their logos fall within the color spectrum. Next, we have brown. Brown can appear rugged, masculine, or serious. Brown is very underutilized, so you'll stand out from the competition. A few of my clients who have male grooming products will probably blend a black and brown palette, as well as for some of my clients who have like natural products. We'll use brown or craft labels for their products. And moving on to black, you know, black can translate as sleek, modern, and luxurious. So if you're looking to appear economical and affordable, black may not be the primary color of choice. You may want to include some other colors in there. And so think of some of your fashion labels. A lot of them will have black logos. And so, you know, it's kind of, it's selling luxury. And if that's what you're going for, perfect. But if not, you might want to stay away from black as a primary color in your logo. And then there's green. So green is ultimate in versatility with strong cultural associations. It's connected to nature, growth, rebirth, and in the US, of course, money and prosperity. So this graphic shows some recognizable brands and how their logos fall within the color spectrum. Now, some of these adjectives we may no longer link to certain brands, depending on recent unethical decisions they may have made. But I imagine initially their decisions around color were made to evoke certain emotional responses. And so if you look at this diagram or this infographic, you'll see brands like Nickelodeon under orange. And it's a perfect color to choose for that brand. Friendly, cheerful. And I don't know if as kids would we receive Nickelodeon in the color red or any other color. You also look at Fanta, which I think is a Coca-Cola product, but it's a significantly different type of brand. It's fun, it's festive, so they chose orange for that as well. And then kind of looking through, I see Animal Planet in there. You know, that's the perfect color for an Animal Planet logo. You have green. And then Whole Foods is also kind of in the green area. It's peaceful, you know, it represents health. And then let's see, what else do we have in here? Kind of looking through. We have Netflix. So yeah, just kind of take some time. This is included in the resource guide. Take some time to look through and see if you recognize any brands in there, and look at how they're using color. Again, it's important to know who your target audience is. You're designing and making decisions around what they'll like. So choose colors that make sense for your brand, but will also engage or attract the eye of your consumer. For example, I completed a web project for a mental health and wellness organization, and their colors were blue and yellow. And so if you look at the diagram, you see blue conveys trust and strength, while yellow conveys optimism and warmth, as well as clarity. So those colors were perfect for that line of business. So what do? I pull together a few palette options for clients and ask them to gather feedback from members of their target audience, the sample I was telling you about. And I would suggest you all do the same when you're coming up with your color palettes. So where do you find color palettes? The Adobe Color Wheel is a great place to start. You can browse thousands, and I mean thousands, of color palettes. You could just go to color.adobe.com and click on Explore, and then type in a color or category and just start browsing. Thinking back to, again, our color theory and emotion guide, you want to pull palette options that are appropriate for your brand. The color wheel will also give you all of the color combinations you need to make sure colors are consistent across platforms and products. So the color wheel will give you RGB and hex numbers, which are used for your screen or screen graphics. It'll also give you CMYK and Pantone colors, which are used for printing. And these are the most common color systems that you'll use. And I've included a link in the resources that explains to you, exactly what these color systems are. So we've kind of reached the end of color palettes or color theory. Do we have any questions before we move into gathering inspiration?
Brandy, I'd be curious to know, how did you approach this for your own business?
Sure. So when I was redesigning my brand, I wanted something fun. I wanted something festive. I wanted something that really spoke to groups of people. Again, kind of going back to my why and wanting to service different types of people, but folks who felt, their voices needed to be heard. So, for me, the opening graphic that was like the burst of color, that was just perfect because I felt like it looked diverse. It looked like it would attract, the folks who I'm wanting to work with. So, I made, and most of my graphics, I kind of lead with that graphic image, but most of my graphics or kind of documents that I send out are just black and white, but that burst of color is, what I primarily use for, kind of introducing my brand. Okay. All right, so if that's the only question, I'll move right into gathering inspiration. So after I generate the color palette for my clients, I design a mood board. And so I'm sure you've seen plenty of these floating around Instagram. Mood boards allow designers to build a clear aesthetic story. Using a mood board helps to express the vision we have in mind for the project. And it's a very efficient visual communication tool and a good starting point. So it's also, for us, a document that gives clients guidance on how to create or make visual decisions for their brands once they've moved on from working with their designer. I will, it'll help you with which images you're choosing for your website, or maybe even how you will style your photo shoots. So I talked about clients sending links to inspiration as part of the homework. This part of the process is also very important because it informs my work and my decisions around brand look and feel. I use your vision as a point or of reference when pulling images for the official brand board. And I've given clients mood boards and they've used those to style and provide creative direction for photo shoots. We'll talk about photography a little later, but there are online services like Suna that will allow you to send over a mood board and list of creative shots, and they'll take all of your product photos for you. But also, there are some amazing local photographers. I must add, there's nothing quite like a photographer that knows and is familiar with your brand. But you can usually send a shoot mood board to your photographer, and they should be able to use that information to prepare for the shoot. So you'll see here in this next slide is a mood board that I created for a client. Her previous branding was super gold, super like gradient gold, and she wanted to subdue her palette. She loves pinks and kind of blush colors and neutrals. So I created the mood board for her first, and that informed all of the pieces that we worked on. So that helped, of course, guide my direction or choices around deciding her logo, as well as creating her Instagram templates and all of the other creative that we used in digital spaces. So again, the mood board provides great direction for kind of any and everything you do visually in your brand, and it sets the tone for everything. So if you're looking to do this on your own, I would suggest starting a Pinterest board and pinning all of your inspiration. And of course, the link is pinterest.com, which I'm sure you're all familiar with. I would also suggest websites like unsplash.com, Pexels, which is PEXELS.com, shotstash.com for free photography, as well as nappy.co for beautiful high-res photos of Black and brown people. And there's also a service, backdropstock.com, which is a great site for finding backgrounds for product photos, and also Shutterstock. So all of these resources are in the resource guide. Some of them you will have to pay to use certain images, and others are free. But it's good to kind of have them, again, to be pulling those images to build your mood board. So, you'll compile all of these inspiration images into one folder and start to remove any images that aren't in line with your brand vision. And thinking back to your answers from the homework, we want to rule out any outliers and any photos that don't make sense. We're also keeping in mind that we're designing for our target audience. So we want to make sure we love the brand direction, but that our clients will love it as well. Once you've compiled all of your images, I would suggest creating a mood board in Canva. So Canva is a great creative resource. If you don't have an account, I suggest signing up for one. You'll log in, and once you get to the home screen, you can click on Create a Design, and then type in Mood Board Photo Collage, and it'll set you up with a few templates to choose from. From there, you can either upload the images you've compiled or search for additional photos within Canva. And then you'll be able to drag and drop the photos into the template. So this part of the creative process is really fun. It allows your creativity and imagination to take off. I invite you to share your mood boards with me. I would love for you to tag me on Instagram at Mebane Design Studio with what you come up with. And I can repost or share to my feed what you've learned in the Intro to Brand Visuals class. So that is gathering inspiration. Do we have any questions about this part of the process? You guys are quiet. All right, so we'll move on, and I'm hoping that we'll have questions at the end, because I would love to answer some of your specific, business questions, and maybe even take it offline if, we want to talk in depth about things. All right, so let's briefly go over the different types of logos. So there may be a few other kind of classifications out there, but most fall within these categories. So there's the abstract mark, which you'll see is represented by Pepsi. There's the mascot logo, which is represented by KFC. And then there's the combination mark that's represented by Burger King. Yeah, there's a lot of fast food in here. The Harvard logo is an emblem logo. And then we have NASA as the letter mark. And the pictorial mark is Apple. And then Google as the word mark. So, I've included in the resource guide a description of each, so you know the difference between the types of logos. Keeping all of that in mind, it's important to have an idea of what you're looking for before hiring a designer. Now, there may be a few questions you'll need to ask yourself and any designers you're interested in interviewing before signing a contract and moving forward with the logo development or brand development process. So if you're interested in working with a designer, make sure you look through their portfolio or website. Look through their work and get a feel for their design style and capabilities. Can you see your brand or logo within their body of work? Do you see the range of design that you're looking for? And then also, are they a graphic designer or graphic artist? So I would define myself as a graphic designer, and graphic designers usually solve visual communication problems. This can be creating a website design that is user-friendly and interactive, or creating packaging for a product that jumps off the shelf. Our goals in the commercial world are to get a consumer to act or purchase from a website, look at an ad, spend their money, or develop connections, versus a graphic artist is a fine artist who uses, a sense of graphic kind of sensibility in their work. Some examples of graphic artworks, are fine arts, comics, poster designs, and illustrations. So you might hire a graphic artist to design the logo, but then move forward with a graphic designer for some of your other brand elements, like your typography, your color palette, and guidelines. And I'll show you an example of that a little bit later, where I worked with a graphic artist who designed the logo, and I came up with some other parts of the brand guide. So this is the most important piece, is making sure that you do the research before committing to a contract. But if you're looking to either do it yourself or start with a lower cost option, here are a few resources. So there's Fiverr, which I'm sure most of you are probably familiar with. Fiverr came on the scene a couple years ago, and a lot of designers kind of lost their heads, but it's a valuable resource to small business owners. There's also Canva, there's 99 Designs, and even Wix has some logo building options. But just note, some of these options are template options. So you and a few others may have a very similar logo, but it is a low or no cost option. So I know Fiverr can give you unique logos as well as 99 Designs, but Canva and Wix, yes, most of those are templates. So there very well may be some other business that has a very similar design logo to you. So if you're looking to design yourself, perhaps, a typographic approach may work for you. And we'll talk a bit about typography next. Perhaps you can find a nice typeface that is a perfect letter mark or word mark for your brand. So I just finished working on the rebrand for Crust by Mac, and we moved forward with a word mark. It worked perfectly. We wanted playful yet simple and straight to the point. We underline the U in Crust, and that builds on Amanda's vision and mission of involving you, the client, and the brand. And the Crust is made for you. So a typographic approach, maybe it's about finding what works best for your brand. And you also see here, we took a typographic kind of simple approach to the logo, but we're using design elements, and I was able to silhouette some of her delicious treats and use those as, design elements. So there's a lot of other things that you can do, even if you're just kind of doing a simple typographic logo. So what files do you need? Regardless of choosing to work with a designer or opting for a lower cost option, you'll want to make sure you have access to all of the appropriate files. Make sure your designer or whatever service is generating the design sends you JPEG versions in various sizes. You'll also want PNGs, which stands for Portable Network Graphics. And those are versions which are usually in higher resolution and used for the screen. PNGs can also have a transparent background. You'll also want vector files. It's very, very important to have access to your vector files. So these are the editable versions of your graphics. Vector files will allow you to scale your logo to any size without them being blurry or grainy. You'll have, you can scale a vector graphic to the size of a bus ad or even a billboard. So, and you can also change the color and manipulate the points on graphic images, or vector files. So they are very important to have. Okay, so that is, again, a very high level, kind of fast overview. And please, you all let me know if I'm going a little too fast, of logo design. Do we have any questions before we head into typography?
I'd be curious to hear if anyone on this call has designed their own logo or attempted to design their own logo, and what that process was like, if anyone wants to volunteer that.
I'll speak. This is Lakeisha. I did my first logo. I did design it myself, and it was horrible. And then I actually hired someone to redesign it, and I'm in love with it. But I'm a little worried now that maybe I need to get another logo redesign just because of what I'm learning today. I didn't take into consideration all of the things that Brandy's speaking about, but I think the logo is pretty, it's recognizable now.
Mhm.
And so I'm concerned with changing it, but I'm just going to do a little market research with my target market just to see what they think about the logo, because I'm in love with it. So I don't want to be emotional. But the first one was horrible. I definitely would suggest hiring somebody.
Okay, and that's fair. And so don't be nervous. You know, again, kind of take the step back. You love it, and then do the market research. So, you know, send it around again to that focus group, just like you said, and see what they think about things. And so maybe, you know, maybe it's a mere color change. Maybe it's not, you know, the logo. Maybe it's just the color that might shift things, or maybe there's some way that you can make up for things and your tone and voice and your narrative. So, you know, don't fret, you know, don't make any rash decisions. Definitely check in with that target audience, that group of people, and survey them. And then, you know, kind of go back to the drawing board, and you can make, you know, small decisions. And I would, you know, suggest either consulting with your graphic designer, or, you know, I would love to kind of talk you through any questions you might have.
Awesome.
Is there anyone else that has decided to or design their own logo, and, you know, any questions you might have? Thank you again, Lakeisha, for talking about that and sharing that with us.
Hello, I have a logo. My logo is, I like my logo. I had a graphic artist to design this logo specifically for me, and it's been going well. So when I pass out my business card and people begin to see the card, like, oh, I've seen this card before, but can't put that thing on where. But just to say that that brand and that idea is kind of like sinking in. Yeah, it's pretty basic. It's pretty black and white, but, you know, maybe I want to, you know, again, put some color tones to it. But the style of the logo is very unique. I think it's very unique and it's very different because he created it from his mind, and he just gave me some, you know, choices to choose from. So kind of like the logo. It grows on you.
Well, good. And logo recognition is very valuable. So people see and say, oh, I recognize that. You know, that's building an emotional connection with them. And you know, you said that you love it, your audience loves it. So there may be, you know, little ways that you can, you know, add in color to some of your social materials or packaging or things like that. So it doesn't have to, you know, you don't have to change the logo, of course. There can be other ways that you can, and we'll talk about design elements and other things like that a little bit later, that you can kind of give your brand a little additional texture. So yeah, if you love your logo, if your clients love your logo, it's no sense in recreating the wheel. You know, work with it, and then if in a few years you find that, you know, you're ready for a rebrand, or maybe your audiences have shifted and you want to design something that speaks more towards, you know, a new audience, then you can revisit it then. But, you know, don't make if it ain't broke, don't fix it. All right, so I will go ahead and move into typography if we don't have any other questions. Okay, so typography, just like color, can reference certain emotions or even periods in time. So we need to make informed decisions around typography as well. So, you know, there are several different type classifications, and these are the basic ones that I learned in school. So there's serif, sans serif, scripts, and display, or a decorative font. So display and decorative are kind of about the same. And most typefaces or fonts kind of fall within these font classifications, like I said. So if you're viewing from a computer or your phone, if you look to the right of the screen, you'll see I've kind of identified or placed up some typefaces, some fonts that are, you know, when you look at them, you know what emotion or you know what message they're trying to send. So you look at the word boo. It's written in this kind of this cool typeface that I'm sure references, Halloween or something scary. So, they have been successful in creating something that does just that. When a person sees it, they know exactly what they're supposed to feel. You also see White Christmas, so that's written in a script typeface. And quite often we see script, or we'll use script if we want to give off the impression of luxury or elegance. We quite often use, a script for wedding invitations and things that are more formal. All right. Then we have the coffee please, and so that type of typeface is called a slab serif. It's kind of thick and it has the serifs on it, and so that looks like a strong, like when you look at it, you're supposed to see strength in that. Few coffee houses or coffee brands, as well as you'll see a lot of like kind of vintage brands or vintage logos written in slab serifs. And then you see Refresco, which is a serif, but it's kind of a modern serif, a kind of playful serif. And that it looks fresh, it looks innovative. Okay, so moving on. When choosing a font family, you want to look for font families that have several different weights. Again, you're making these typographic choices for brand body copy, headlines, subtitles, and captions. So a font family I love is Montserrat. There's about 26 different weights in the Montserrat family, and I've included a few here. So there's Montserrat Bold, regular, thin, italic, bold italic, and the list, just kind of goes on. So this family and other font families like it give me a lot of variety when I'm designing. So if I'm putting together an annual report, or if I'm putting together even a postcard or some type of brochure for a business, if they don't have a set, kind of typographic family that they're using within their brands, I will find font families to use that, of course, one, work well with, who we're targeting in terms of audience, but, I'm going to find a font family that has several different weights so I can get that versatility within that one family, one font family. All right. And some font families you'll have to pay to download to use to your computer, but the great thing is many sites will allow you to type in your text, whether it's your business name or a few sentences, so you can see what it'll look like before you purchase. A few resources I suggest are fontsquirrel.com, so that's like the animal squirrel, fontsquirrel.com, and then another website I love, it's one of my personal favorites, it's You Work For Them, and they have some really, really cool typefaces, some really cool font families on that website. There's also creativemarket.com and fonts.google.com. So the Google font directory has hundreds of font families to search through, and most, if not all of them, are free to download. So I did some work with a few years back with the Nielsen Company, and they sent over their brand guide, which of course included guides around typography. I was able to create graphics for a social media toolkit that was perfectly in line with all of their other materials because everything was laid out. I didn't have to make any choices, any decisions around headline typefaces or what point size it should be. I knew exactly what font to use, for body copy. I just simply followed their guidelines and was able to create something beautiful for them. And so even before they gave me access to the files, I had to take about a 1-hour quiz to make sure that I was familiar with their brand guide. A lot of the larger businesses, they don't trust everybody with their brand guide or their brand assets. So they want to make sure you really understand the brands and how you're using their brand assets before you start designing for them. And so I don't know if it has to be that serious, as you guys are building your brand guides. But, eventually you'll get to that point where if you have a designer creating for you, you want them to know, what your choices are for typography. Or when you're creating for yourself, you want to be able to just look at your brand guide and know, I'm going to, do headlines in Montserrat at 26 point, sublines or subtext at 12 point, and then body copy at 10 point. So you want to be that familiar with your typography and the decisions that you're making around, again, your brand look and feel. So next, we'll just go straight into patterns, design elements, and photography. So patterns and design elements, as well as photography, give your brand additional texture and can also help with setting your brand apart from competition. Again, you'll want to make these visual decisions with your brand story and clients in mind. So I'll give the example of the Kit Museum. I recently worked with them on a brand refresh. They wanted to convey in their refresh branding that they're a makerspace targeting kids ages 7 to 14. And kids can come in and build with their hands, a lot of interactive learning. So I pulled wood textures and metal textures for the design elements, as well as this like kind of stripe applied to the lower left-hand corner of images, as well as different screen grabs. We also made sure to highlight certain icons that were representative of the different maker activities. So we would use drills, little icons that are drills, and rulers and things like that. We made sure to choose imagery and photos that showed kids within this age range working with their hands, building, constructing, researching, and learning. So photos needed to be taken at a certain angle and very tight shots. These decisions, although seemingly very simple, should be intentional and will help with brand consistency. So for patterns and elements, I use a website called You Work For Them. I also create a lot of them myself, but if I'm kind of need to draw some inspiration, I'll check out You Work For Them. I also mentioned them before in the typography section. So they have a lot of like cool designs and patterns that you can choose from, but they also have a whole library of typography there as well. I would also suggest Shutterstock. They have a lot of great stuff on Shutterstock. Canva is a great resource. And then there's another website that I use called thehungryjpeg.com. And then again, all of this will be available in the resource guide. So in this screen, you'll see I used the pictorial image, and I referenced this earlier. I used the pictorial image from Blondie's logo to create a pattern. And I worked with a graphic artist that created this beautiful illustration that was then used for the backs of business cards and the menu. And also you'll see on the other side of the screen a vector graphic that was edited to create a pattern that I use for product packaging for a sample honey brand. You can use these distinct design elements on gift cards, postcards, bags, as well as graphic elements for your website. So they really give your brand uniqueness and some additional texture. All right, and then moving into photography, again, it's great to have access to a photographer that is familiar with your brand and creative direction. I have an influencer client that has a photographer on retainer. They'll know which shots to take and the specific angles you'll need based on the information that you've given them. So here's an example of a brand, some of you may be familiar with, the Urban Oyster. I worked with the Urban Oyster on their Beats and Brunch launch. I worked alongside an amazing photographer, an up-and-coming photographer that was able to capture these really cool photos, these really cool, unique photos that are specific to that menu. So no one else will have these. So we mixed design elements. I don't know if you can see some of them around the photography. We mixed the design elements, and these were used for social media graphics as well as a few print pieces. So again, high resolution photography is amazing to have for your business, especially if it's your own unique imagery. But if you don't have access to a photographer, there are plenty of stock image sites, which I listed earlier. And again, it's about choosing the photos, thinking through your photo direction prior to choosing the photos from stock image websites. So you want to kind of think those things through so it'll make choosing photos from these stock sites a lot easier. So this is the final part to the presentation. It's kind of pulling everything together into a brand guide. So you'll all have access to a brand guide template in the resource file. And again, Canva is a great resource. I actually pulled this brand guide template from Canva. They have a few others in there that you can choose from. And in the resource file that you'll receive, I included a link to Uber and Asana's brand guides. They're all public information. And so, those brand guides are a bit extensive. They're quite a few pages, but they're available for your reference. So as you're building your own brand guide for your companies, you'll be able to look to see what other companies are doing. So I'll just kind of flip through this and get a feel for, again, how you pull all of the elements together to create your brand guide. So the first one is, the first page should be a cover page. Just quickly kind of include what the title of the document is, as well as the version and the date. So quite often brands will update their brand guide, so you want to make sure that well, there might be some other kind of versions floating around, so you want to make sure that you've indicated the most recent version on what, whatever brand guide you're working with. Also, the second slide includes the mission and vision. It's very important to go straight from the cover right into the mission and vision. Tell us who you are. Tell us, your value proposition or your why. It's important to have that right there. Next, a bit more about your story. So that includes, detailing your brand positioning, brand personality, and maybe even some of your target market. And that goes straight into verbal identity. So, your tone, your messaging, your voice, your content, those types of things. And again, that's, kind of information that you'll grab from the homework and include in your brand guide, because it's all, it's all a part of, establishing your brand. It's not just the visual, it's all of those other things. So this slide is an important reminder. I've worked with brand guides that are very specific. They will give instructions on how to resize your logo, how not to skew it, how not to stretch it, how not to distort it. The logo should only be made available in these colors. Don't use any other colors. So brand guides can be very specific. And in creating your own, you can kind of judge how specific you want to be. But that's all up to you. And then here's another slide that kind of talks about the vision and inspiration for your logo. You can include that in there. And again, you want to, make this document as thorough and as detailed as possible, because you might have to hand this over to a designer, eventually that will need this information to be able to create for you and stay on track with your branding. This slide, kind of includes information about how your logo should appear on a light or a dark background. And then this slide includes your color palette. So we talked about hex and Pantone colors, and you should include in your branding guide, all of those color combinations so that you'll have them, in a place for quick reference. Again, typography rules. So selecting which fonts will be used for your headlines. Say for example, you're putting together a marketing postcard. What will you use for your headlines? What point size? What font? What will be used for body copy? What will be used for captions? And then also how you'll apply color to different parts of your typography. And then there's iconography. So I talked a little earlier about how we use some icons and design elements for the Kid Museum. So you'll want to outline those here in this slide. What will you use for your social, or what will you use, as design elements on your website potentially, or in packaging. And then this slide includes more about brand photography. So again, making decisions around, get out of here. I'm making decisions around, how you will shoot your photos. Will you shoot head on from a downward angle, or shoot upwards? And this, includes a bit more about photography guidelines. And then we get into social media samples. So, thinking through what will your feed look like, or how will you show up, or how will you look on your social platforms? So that's just, again, a very brief kind of overview of what brand visuals are. Again, I want to stress that branding is more than just the visuals. It's also all of the other things we talked about. But those things inform the decisions that you make around the look and feel. And then those things will also inform marketing. So you want to make sure that you have this outlined. You understand this about your business. You know, you can talk about it regularly, and you have it in one consolidated kind of place, so that as you create, you can kind of go to that resource or go to that reference guide. All right, so that's it. I hope you were able to gather some valuable information from this presentation. This was my first time doing this, so I'm so happy you all were able to join me today. And all of the resources that I spoke of will be included in an email, I think, to you after this presentation. But I just want to open it up for any questions that you may have. And I'm going to take it out of present mode. Okay. So do you all have any questions? Don't be shy.
No questions, but thanks, Brandy. I think you did a great job, great resources. Definitely got some cool other websites to add to my repertoire. So great job, especially your first time. Amazing. Kudos.
Oh, thank you. And I appreciate that coming from a brander.
No problem at all.
I also want to thank you, Brandy. It was a ton of information in there, and I'm sure for each topic we could dive so much deeper. I'm curious to know, for that process you just laid out from start to finish, is there kind of like a typical time that you would work with a client to get to that final branding guideline?
Sure. So I tell my clients to budget in at least 6 to 8 weeks. And the 6 to 8 weeks, that doesn't really build in the time for them to do the homework. That's really my design time and the decision, the time that I need to make decisions and, design, then take a step back and then, kind of review. So I would suggest, and the homework has been made available to everyone, just kind of think through those things, before you potentially engage a designer, or do that on your own. So yeah, about 6 to 8 weeks minimum. So I see some comments coming through. Thank you, Stephanie.
Yeah, the presentation was great. I literally between all the resources you shared and the follow-up, you answered all my questions.
Oh, good. Well, that's good. Yeah, again, the resource guide, that will include just links to articles, that I found helpful as a designer. I'm always looking to other designers to kind of get a feel for them, about their process, because there's always ways to refine my process and to make, my client interactions, more engaging. So I'm also learning. But those resources, a lot of those come from other designers, as well as, kind of industry folks that are very knowledgeable about design and the design world.
I'm also curious to hear from the group if anyone is anyone engaged in a branding exercise for their business right now that you want to share about, maybe where you are in the process?
I did hire a graphic designer to create my logo, and we kind of went through this slightly, but he didn't listen a lot to what I wanted, so I'm not in love with my logo. So I might be changing it. But this was very helpful to see why he was asking me some of the questions he was asking and things like that.
Okay. And there may be room for you to because I'm not a believer in don't trash the logo just yet, but there may be room for you to find some other graphic elements, or like I said, kind of design elements that you can use in addition to your logo to enhance your brand and give it a little more texture, if that's what you're looking for.
I have a question.
Sure.
So I wanted to redo my social.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I'm curious on, should I have a number of pictures already on hand so that when I post, because I don't want to post everything at once, but I don't want to be weeks between posting because I'm still trying to get pictures and everything taken care of. So should I just have maybe a folder full of pictures that I want to use and then go through rebranding the social?
So yes, so social strategy is a whole nother beast. But what I do for my clients is, I will create the mood board and then I'll put together a photo bank. And so in that photo bank will be kind of stock imagery that I've pulled, that I'll make sure that they have the licensing agreements to use and things like that. If I purchase from like a Shutterstock or something like that. But yes, compile a group of or a folder of photography. And then there's also the piece to social, which is the strategy behind it. So, making sure that, the captions and the timing and all of that is very important. But yes, compile everything, kind of plan it out. There are apps like Planoly, and I think now Canva, is it Canva? Canva might offer some, will allow you to plan in Canva and then plan the captions and the photography and kind of lay it out in Canva, and then you can kind of post it to Instagram. So I do have some apps that I suggest using for social development as well.
Hey, we have a couple of questions. The vector files you referred to, is it normal to incur an extra charge from the designer to purchase basically that file?
So it all depends on the designer. I hand over, it's written in my contract that I will hand over the vector files. Once, a client finalizes and we move forward, we want to use this, logo, I hand over the vector file for the logo, and the legal ownership is now transferred to them. But some designers will require, it really all depends on the designer, they'll require an extra fee because they'll say, this is my kind of intellectual property and you're renting the logo from me. So it all depends, and that's something that's a great question to ask, before you contract with a designer, because, each designer is different. But like I said, I transfer the files, they are yours now, and you have access to them, the vector or the editable versions.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then, so we're about to hit the 2-year mark for our brand, and we're wanting to make some changes.
Mm-hmm.
Is there, like a process you would recommend, or like a, couple of steps or order, or any recommendation you can give us on rebranding?
Sure.
Or just updating.
I'm sorry, say the last part.
Or just updating some maybe not complete like change of logo and all of it, but just some updates too.
Yeah, so I would say go back to the homework and kind of look through the homework and see if any of that information has changed. So, is your audience slightly different? Are your services slightly different? Or, has your mission or your vision, or have any of those things changed since you started your business? And if they have, see if you can find a focus group kind of within, if there's been a shift in audience, see if you can find a focus group and, run some decisions by them. So I would say, yes, start with the homework, see if there have been any changes. And then, I would love to kind of consult you through the process. It's not a super easy question to answer this quickly, but I can, based on your answers to the homework, I can make some suggestions to you. So, yeah, I would kind of start there.
Nothing really has changed necessarily. We've just learned a lot of things about branding compared to nothing. And so yeah, I think we just want to incorporate some of those things that we've learned, rather than dealing with like more mission changes or audience changes or anything like that. Most of that's remained the same. We just want to incorporate some of our lessons learned in 2 years of not knowing what we're doing.
Okay. So yeah, I think, if I had a better feel for maybe some of the lessons that you learned and how we could translate that visually, that, I would love to kind of talk to you offline to see if there's a way that I can kind of help guide you through that process. Because yeah, there is a way for us to visually communicate, those changes that you've seen in your business. We just have to kind of pin down what they are and kind of think through what that looks like.
Okay, awesome. And then last, you mentioned the resource guide. Where can we find that?
So that should be to you. I'll work with Tatiana and Andy to make sure that you all get that today.
Awesome. Okay, thanks so much.
No problem.
Randy, can we put a link in the chat to the Google Drive, or would you prefer that we just send it via email?
Sure. So I can do that. Yes.
Okay. Another thought came up while Erin was talking about the question around usage rights on the vector files, and it just occurred to me to mention that the same question applies to photography often. That when people are working with photographers, you need to think about what kind of use license you're getting when you get those images. Some photographers only give you kind of a one-time use or use for a certain period of time, or a use for certain applications but not others. Always something to look out for in a contract with a professional photographer.
Mm-hmm.
Well, so looks like you put the link in the chat there. Thank you for that, Brandy. So everybody can go ahead and access it that way. And unless there's any other questions, I want to just leave it open for a minute for any last minute questions. If not, I just want to say thank you so much, Brandy, for that excellent presentation. Really appreciate it.
No problem.
Everyone for coming today and participating in this Tools of the Trade workshop. I also put the link in the chat for our blog, where the recording will live probably in the next week or two. You can also visit it now and see past Tools of the Trade workshop recordings. We've got 4 posted there right now. And for those of you unfamiliar with Made in Baltimore, please explore our website while you're at it. Visit our business directory and see all the different local businesses that have profiles there, and the different locally made products that you can find. And by all means, sign up on our email list. We send out notifications about all these workshops on a somewhat regular basis. And if you happen to be a business in Baltimore City that is making products here, making or manufacturing products, I encourage you to complete our certification and get involved in the network in that way as well. So with that, I think we're ready to wrap. Any last words, Brady?
Thank you so much, everyone. I feel like I can take a deep breath now, but I really appreciate you joining me on a Friday afternoon, and I'm happy to share this information with you. And again, just kind of reiterating that branding is more than just the visuals. It's all of the strategy and kind of the pre-work, but I'd be happy to help you all kind of coach you through some of the decisions that you've made around branding for your business. So. But thank you again for joining today.
And I think that answers the last question in the chat from Stephanie about brand coaching. So thank you.
Oh, yeah.
All right, everyone. Happy Friday. Have a great weekend, and hope to see you next time at the next Tools of the Trade workshop.
Sounds good. Thanks, Andy.
Thank you. Enjoyed the class. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Have a great weekend.
You too.
You too.
Thank you. Goodbye.